100 million versus 100 billion net worth isn't just a difference in zeros, it is the difference between being rich and being a god. While you are told that working harder will get you to the top, the reality is that the game changes entirely once you cross a specific invisible line, leaving 99.9% of humanity in a completely different economic reality. And in this video, we aren't just going to tell you about that line. We are going to show you the terrifying physical scale of it and reveal the mechanism they use to make sure you never cross it. To truly understand the forces working against your wallet, you have to break the hypnosis of the number 100. When you hear 100 million and 100 billion, your brain conveniently categorizes them in the same ultra-wealthy box. That is a fatal error. Let's strip away the digital abstraction and look at the physical reality. Imagine stacking 100 million $1 bills. It is a formidable structure, a heavy, dense mass of wealth that represents absolute safety and luxury. This is the level of the centimillionaire. It looks massive. It feels unattainable. But now, watch this. Pull the focus back. Keep pulling back. Place that pile next to $100 billion. The first pile, on that mountain of cash you just visualized, is now a speck of dust. The second pile towers over it, like a skyscraper over a shoebox. This isn't just more money, it is a different species of power. There are roughly only 19 people on Earth operating at this altitude. These aren't just people who bought a house up the road here in Washington, D.C. They are people who could buy the road, the zip code, and the legislation that governs them. Remember the visualization of $100,000? That little stack that represents years of saving for the average family? In this new landscape, that stack is invisible. It doesn't even register as a pixel on the screen. We are entering a world where the median U.S. household net worth of $192,000 is a rounding error. You need to understand this scale because the rules of gravity do not apply here. The way money moves, grows, and hides at this level is alien to everything you have been taught about finance. We are about to step into the shoes of the people standing on top of that $100 billion mountain to see what they see, starting with their poorer cousins at the bottom of the food chain, the mere centimillionaires. Let's humanize this abstract mountain of cash. Meet Arthur. Arthur founded a mid-sized logistics software company, grew it for a decade, and sold it to a tech giant. After taxes and diversifying his portfolio, he is left with a clean net worth of $100 million. In the eyes of the world, Arthur has made it. He is a centimillionaire, a title held by only about 28,000 people globally, with a heavy concentration of 818 of them living right here in New York City. Arthur's life is defined by a specific kind of high-end frictionlessness. His housing budget sits comfortably between $8 million and $15 million. In London or New York, this buys him entry into what real estate listings call a Tony enclave. You might see that phrase in a listing describing a sun-kissed area or a superior pre-war white glove cooperative. If you don't know what a Tony enclave is, that is by design. It is code for a neighborhood that has effectively seceded from the public infrastructure you rely on. Inside his $8.5 million midtown apartment, he enjoys al fresco entertaining and a semi-private elevator, insulating him from the chaos of the city below. But Arthur doesn't just live in New York. He maintains a portfolio of escape routes, a villa in the south of France and a waterfront property in Miami, both staffed year-round with housekeepers awaiting his arrival. Yet, here is the crucial distinction that separates Arthur from the gods we will meet later. Arthur still checks price tags, particularly when it comes to gravity. He cannot quite afford the $60 million Gulfstream he wants, so he relies on jet cards. This is a prepaid debit card for the sky. He loads it with hours paying anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 per flight hour. A weekend trip from New York to Miami might cost him $15,000, a staggering sum for you, but for Arthur, it is the equivalent of a median household spending $30 on a cab. When he wants to go further, say Los Angeles to Australia, he charters a heavy jet for $200,000. His social calendar is equally pay-to-play. He buys the $3,500 VIP tickets to the Hamptons polo matches in July. He books the Hotel Hermitage in Monte Carlo for the F1 race at $25,000 a night. He's living a life of 18 full-time staff members, including a personal handler, a chef, and a security team. But make no mistake, Arthur is still paying retail. He's buying access to a world he doesn't own. He's wealthy, but he is not yet sovereign. To understand true sovereignty, we have to look at how he funds this lifestyle without going broke. Here lies the mechanism that makes the wealthy invincible. A financial alchemy that is likely illegal for you, but standard operating procedure for Arthur. You see, if you need cash to buy a car or a house, you have to sell your time for a paycheck, which is taxed, or you have to sell an asset, which triggers capital gains tax. If Arthur wants to spend $10 million of his fortune, and he sells $10 million worth of stock, the IRS immediately steps in to take roughly 37%. He is left with only $6.3 million. He has lost power. He has lost equity. This is a defeat. So Arthur doesn't sell. He never sells. Instead, he utilizes the buy, borrow, die strategy, a loop that effectively creates an infinite money glitch in the real world. He walks into a bank like UBS or Merrill Lynch not to make a deposit, but to make a deal. He pledges his $100 million portfolio as collateral. Because these assets are stable and massive, the bank will happily lend him up to 85% of their value. Suddenly, Arthur has access to $85 million in liquid cash. Now, look at the magic of this transaction. Is this money income? No, it is debt. And because it is debt, it is tax-free. The IRS gets exactly $0. But wait, you might be thinking, he has to pay interest, right? He is going into debt. This is where the game is rigged in a way that defies the logic of your household budget. While you might pay 25% interest on a credit card, someone with Arthur's balance sheet is viewed as risk-free. According to reports from the Wall Street Journal, individuals at this level have secured interest rates as low as 0.87%. Even in a higher rate environment, let's be conservative and say he pays 5.9%. Here's the kicker. While his loan is accruing 5.9% interest, his $100 million portfolio, which he didn't have to sell, is still sitting in the market, historically growing at roughly 10% per year. Do the math. His wealth is growing faster than his debt is accruing. He is literally making money by borrowing money to live like a king. He spends millions on jets and villas, pays zero taxes, and ends the year richer than he started. It is a mathematical impossibility for the working class, but for the centimillionaire, it is simply Tuesday. And yet, as impressive as this loophole is, Arthur is still just playing in the sandbox compared to what happens when we add another zero. Now, we apply a multiplier that the human brain struggles to comprehend. We are going to 10x our pile. We are moving from $100 million to $1 billion. The air gets thinner here. Only about 3,000 humans on the planet breathe this oxygen. Enter Marcus. Marcus didn't grind his way to the top-selling software. He wrote a lucky $200,000 check to a couple of college dropouts in Silicon Valley. That startup became a global tech infrastructure monopoly, and his tiny equity slice is now worth $1 billion. At this altitude, the concept of budget dissolves entirely. Marcus doesn't look for a house, he acquires territories. His primary residence is a $57.5 million compound on the Upper East Side, essentially two massive townhouses surgically combined into one, featuring a rooftop basketball court and a pool tiled with his favorite inspirational quotes. But that is just base camp. His portfolio includes keys to properties in Aspen, Lake Garda, Dubai, St. Barths, and a pied-à-terre in downtown Paris. The most visceral difference between Marcus and Arthur is how they conquer distance. Arthur had a prepaid card for a jet. Marcus owns the Air Force. He bought his own private jet for $75 million, but the purchase price is irrelevant. It is the burn rate that signals his status. He burns $3 million a year just to keep the bird legal. He pays $135,000 annually just for a hangar to store it, $600,000 for fuel, and over $700,000 to retain a full-time pilot and crew who do nothing but wait for his text message. His vacations are no longer about VIP access. They are about total isolation. While Arthur is paying to get into the party, Marcus is paying to keep the world out. When he stays at his villa, he doesn't go shopping. He flies in a luxury travel coordinator who arranges for brands like Gucci or Louis Vuitton to transport their latest inventory to his living room. They build a temporary private store inside his vacation home. In one verified instance, a family at this level spent $1.5 million in an afternoon without ever putting on shoes. He has a 131-foot yacht with a permanent crew of 9, a personal doctor on retainer, and a dog walker whose sole job is to keep his poodle entertained. But here is the dark twist. Marcus arguably pays less effective tax on his lifestyle than the pilot flying his jet. You might be wondering how Marcus can spend $75 million on a jet and millions on upkeep while paying minimal taxes. The secret lies in a little magic trick called business expenses. At the billion-dollar level, your hobbies stop being hobbies and start being corporations. Take Thunder, Marcus's prize-winning thoroughbred racehorse. Marcus bought him for $3 million. He built stables, hired trainers, and flies Thunder around the world. To you, this looks like an expensive pet. To the IRS, Thunder is a depreciating business asset. Marcus writes off the purchase price, the feed, the vet bills, and the travel against his other income. If Thunder loses a race, that loss reduces Marcus's tax bill. If Thunder wins, it's business income. He is essentially subsidizing his gambling habit with the tax code. But horses are small potatoes. Marcus recently bought an NBA team. This is the ultimate billionaire trophy. And here is the most shocking part of the playbook, exposed by ProPublica. When a billionaire buys a sports team, they can often deduct the price of the players' contracts from their taxes over time. They argue that players, like factory machinery, are assets that wear out. So even if the team's value skyrockets and the stadium sells out every night, Marcus can claim a paper loss by depreciating his star point guard. This accounting fiction allows him to pay a lower effective tax rate than the guy pouring beers in the stadium stands. It doesn't stop there. Marcus has a $130 million art collection. He decides to donate it to charity, but he doesn't give it to the Louvre. He gives it to his own private family foundation. This grants him an immediate tax deduction for the full market value. To comply with the law, he has to make the art accessible to the public. So he opens a gallery on his property that is only open by appointment 2 hours a week, on random Wednesdays, via a lottery system. Technically, it's public. Realistically, it's a private vault that the government paid him to build. This is the genius of the billionaire class. They don't break the laws. They use the laws that were written for them. And if a law isn't working in their favor, they simply change it. When you have $1 billion, you don't wait for elections. You invest in them. Marcus understands that the highest return on investment isn't in the stock market. It's in the Senate. This isn't conspiracy theory. It is a line item in his budget. Let's look at a concrete example. A piece of legislation is moving through Congress that threatens to close one of Marcus's favorite tax loopholes. This could cost him $200 million over the next decade. So he activates his influence. He doesn't just vote. He funnels $20 million into a super PAC, supporting a key senator's re-election campaign. To you, $20 million is an unimaginable fortune. To Marcus, it is a 10% fee to save 90% of his money. The senator wins. Months later, that threatening bill is on the floor. Suddenly, at the last minute, an amendment is inserted. Just 8 little words buried in page 400 of the document that creates a specific exemption for certain types of technology holdings. That is Marcus's exemption. The loophole stays open. He spent $20 million to save $200 million. That is a 1,000% return on investment. There's no hedge fund on Wall Street that can beat the returns of purchasing a politician. But sometimes the ambition goes beyond money. Sometimes Marcus wants a title. He donates heavily to a presidential candidate. When that candidate takes the White House, Marcus receives an email. He has been selected as the new ambassador to Switzerland. Despite having no diplomatic experience, he is now His Excellency. It is a common pattern. Donor lists often look suspiciously like the guest list for ambassadorial swearing-in ceremonies. This is the pivot point. At $1 billion, Marcus has mastered the game of human influence. He has conquered the laws of taxation and the halls of government. But he's still bound by the laws of physics. He still lives on Earth. He still relies on the grid. To break those chains, to truly leave humanity behind, we have to ascend to the final, terrifying level, the $100 billion club. Brace yourself. We are about to 100x the pile again. We are leaving the realm of the wealthy and entering the stratosphere of the ultra-elite. There are fewer than 20 people on this list. Names like Musk, Bezos, Ellison. This is $100 billion. To understand this scale, stop thinking about luxury and start thinking about nations. If you combine the annual salaries of 7.5 million Americans, earning the median wage of $63,000, you would just barely match the net worth of one of these men. One man holding the economic output of a population the size of Hong Kong. Meet Julian. Julian founded a tech empire that is now the nervous system of the modern world. His net worth is $120 billion. He doesn't buy houses, he buys horizons. He owns a portfolio of trophy properties worth over $2 billion. He bought an entire island in Hawaii, Lanai, effectively becoming the landlord for everyone who lives there. In Florida, he purchased a $173 million estate with 33 bedrooms and 39 bathrooms, a house with more toilets than most hotels. In London, he didn't just buy a mansion, he bought the mansion, and then he bought every single property touching it to ensure that no neighbor could ever look into his windows. But real estate is boring for Julian. He craves influence over the collective consciousness. So he decides to buy a social media platform. He doesn't need to sell his stock to do it. He uses the buy, borrow, die strategy on a galactic scale. He takes out a loan for billions of dollars, backed by his stock, to acquire the company. He now owns the town square. He controls the algorithm that decides what you see, what you think, and what you fear. He owns a fleet of 3 massive jets, including an ACS 350, a commercial airliner converted into a flying palace with 3,000 square feet of floor space. He spent $360 million on the plane and another $100 million renovating the interior to install a full spa. He has a collection of 2,000 cars, worth $200 million housed in warehouses that are larger than most factories. But even this isn't enough. Julian is starting to feel cramped by the planet itself. He is looking at the stars, and he is looking at the end of the world. At $100 billion, the fear changes. You aren't afraid of losing your job. You are afraid of civilization collapsing. And unlike you, Julian can buy insurance against the apocalypse. He isn't just prepping. He is building a parallel civilization. Julian has secured a specialized investor visa for New Zealand, a favorite bolt hole for the ultra-elite. There, buried deep beneath the rolling green hills, he has constructed an $8 million bunker. This isn't a cold concrete basement. It features a decontamination shower, a surgical suite fully stocked with medical supplies, a gun room, and enough food to last for years. But how does he get there when the world burns? He has a standing agreement with his pilot. In the event of a societal collapse, the pilot and his family are guaranteed a spot in the bunker, ensuring Julian has a loyal driver to fly him out of the chaos while the rest of us are stuck in traffic. But maybe the land isn't safe. So Julian looks to the sea. He commissions a $600 million super yacht. It is 417 feet long, essentially a floating city. It has a crew of 80 people, a movie theater, a golf training room, and a helipad. It is so massive that it cannot enter many normal ports. So he has a shadow barge, a second support vessel that follows him everywhere, carrying his toys, his extra fuel, and his helicopter. Yet, even the ocean feels limiting. Julian wants to transcend geography entirely. He has his eyes on a new concept, a $1 billion super yacht airship crossover. It looks like something out of Star Trek. It is a massive blimp yacht hybrid that can float on water or lift off and fly over land, landing anywhere from the desert to the Arctic. It is the ultimate escape vehicle. And for the ultimate escape, space. He pours billions into rocket technology, not just for science, but to ensure that humanity, or at least his humanity, can become multiplanetary. He is building his own infrastructure, his own nations in the South Pacific, his own currency. He is detaching from the collective fate of the species. And the most terrifying part? He has figured out a way to make sure this power never ever dies. This brings us to the final impenetrable wall of the fortress, the step-up in basis. This is the rule that turns a temporary fortune into an eternal dynasty. Throughout Julian's life, his assets, his tech stock, his real estate, his art, have grown by billions of dollars. These are called unrealized gains. If he sold them today, he would owe billions in taxes. But Julian knows the cheat code. He holds on to everything until his last breath. When Julian dies, his entire $100 billion fortune passes to his daughter. And in that exact moment, a miracle of the tax code occurs. The cost basis of all his assets, the price he originally paid for them, is reset to their current value. The billions of dollars in growth that occurred during his lifetime, wiped clean. The tax liability vanishes into thin air. His daughter could sell every single share of stock the next morning and pay exactly $0 in capital gains tax on that growth. Sure, there is an estate tax, a death tax, but Julian's army of wealth managers saw that coming decades ago. They purchased massive insurance policies specifically designed to pay that tax bill, or they locked the assets into dynasty trusts that can technically last forever, shielding the money from taxes for generation after generation. This is the reality of $100 billion. It is not just money. It is a closed loop. It is a system designed to be impervious to failure, impervious to taxes, and impervious to you. They borrow against their wealth to live tax-free. They write off their luxuries as business expenses. They buy the laws that protect them. And when they die, they wash the slate clean to hand a pristine, tax-free empire to their children. So, the next time you hear billionaire and think it's just a successful person, remember the piles of cash. Remember the scale. You're not looking at success. You're looking at a separate economy, a separate set of laws, and a separate future that is being built right now with or without you. The only question left is, now that you see the strings, what are you going to do about it?